Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the 2025 John Deere Classic. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about this golf tournament, starting with the course itself and all the key stats and data that go along with it, and then taking a look at the board and all the players and coming up with a strategy for DFS betting and one and done this week. And we're going to tell you why Denny McCarthy is going to win his first PGA Tour event here this week. Putting my stamp on that right now. I'm picking Denny McCarthy. But first, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That way you can be with us for all of our content through the rest of the summer, including the rest of the PGA Tour season, as well as all of our best ball content for both NFL and college football. We are closing in to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I can only get there if you guys help me out. If you have not subscribed already, that'd be a massive milestone for us, huge goal. So please help me out if you have not done so already. But yeah, we're here for the John Deere Classic, and let me tell you guys, if you remember my analysis last week from the Rocket Classic, if there's somebody that you liked last week, you might want to go back to him this week because there's some striking similarities from Detroit Golf Club to TPC Deere Run, but there is a few key differences. And like I said, we're going to break down all those key differences, and we're going to break down how that's going to impact strategy here this week. Last week at the Rocket Classic, not the best week for me, was a slight negative in DFS, was able to do really well in Showdown DFS last week, but in week long was not a great week, was not all over Aldrich Potgieter. He was in the player pool, but he was not a core player or anything like that. My core plays were not bad. Ben Griffin, Patrick Cantlay, just kind of no one from the top of the board really won or lost you money last week, unless you had a ton of Max Grazerman, which I had a little bit of Grazerman. The only thing I really missed last week was I had Steven Yeager as a core play. That was a big miss, but I still stand by the process that found him. And I just wish that I would have been smart enough to, not play him last week. But, hopefully things will change this week. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into TPC Deere Run. All right, so at its core, TPC Deere Run has a lot of striking similarities with what we saw last week at Detroit Golf Club. It is what I refer to as a bent grass birdie fest, which means that it is going to be a quite easy golf course with bent grass greens, and we tend to see a lot of these over the summer on the PGA Tour, and they tend to all be in the Midwestern United States. There are some slight differences between them, though. So, like, Detroit Golf Club was like version 1. This week, what we're going to see at the John Deere is like version 2. What we're going to see with the alternate events is like version 3. And then the 3M Open is like version 4, right? So, in this version, how it's slightly different from Detroit Golf Club is that the golf course is just sized a little bit differently, and the off the tee strategy is a lot different, right? So, Detroit Golf Club was a golf course where you could gain a significant advantage with distance off the tee, which is what we saw from Aldrich Potgieter. It's what we saw with Max Grazerman. It's what we saw with Minwoo Lee, guys like that, right? But that is not necessarily the case here at TPC Deere Run. This is a golf course that when you look at the correlation, very much prioritizes accuracy off the tee as opposed to distance. And the reason why is that this golf course is much shorter. It is only about 7,200 yards. It is a par 71. And it's also got a lot of dog legs and a lot of forced layups that really kind of negate the use of driver off the tee. There's going to be some holes where guys are going to be playing 3-wood. So you're just not going to have that ridiculous advantage of bombing a 360-yard drive and only having a nice little pitch shot into the green. Everybody's going to kind of be playing to the same spots more or less. So it is not like last week, where last week you could really start yourself on second base with a bomb of a drive. This week, you're just hoping to make it to first base. The priority this week is going to be finding the fairway and keeping it out of the trees, because this is a very tree-lined golf course. Like last week, the fairways are pretty wide. And so I do think that does allow the opportunity for guys to separate themselves with their accuracy. We've talked about this contention all year long, that accuracy players are better served at wider fairway courses, because when the fairways get too narrow, even the most accurate players on the PGA Tour are not able to hit it, right? So wider fairways means that the accurate hitters are going to be able to have a significant advantage and really going to be able to separate with their accuracy percentage as opposed to longer hitters. Now, once you get past that first shot, this is very much a wedge and short iron fest on approach. There are a ton of approach shots from 100 to 125 yards and 125 to 150 yards. Those are the only two approach buckets that are above average for the PGA Tour. And so really, if you're good with your wedges, if you're good with your short irons, then this is going to be a good week for you. Now, because of the fact that bombing it off the tee is discouraged and there's a lot of wedges in hand, what you end up with is you end up with a scenario where the greens in regulation percentage is very high. Last year, the greens in regulation percentage here was 73%, which is 7% above PGA Tour average. So that's quite significant, right? And so basically on a course where everybody's playing the same spot off the tee, you can't really separate yourself off the tee, right? On a course where everybody is hitting greens, you can still only separate yourself so much on approach. Like if you're giving yourself tap and birdies, like obviously you're going to separate yourself there, right? But if you're just hitting the greens, that's not really going to allow you to separate on approach. So with everybody hitting the greens, what that means is that a lot of the separation here last year and historically at TPC Deere Run occurs with the putter. The easiest way to win this tournament is to just tread water off the tee, be good on approach, and run a red hot putter. And unfortunately for us, that is the hardest thing to predict, is just who is going to run a red hot putter. But last year, when you look at the leaderboard, the top 17 players in the leaderboard all gained strokes putting. So you just simply cannot score well at this tournament if you're going to be losing strokes putting. Now, what that means is putting, it's super volatile, right? So just because a guy lost putting last week doesn't mean that he's going to lose putting this week. Just because a guy's historically a poor putter doesn't mean that they're going to be a poor putter this week. Just because a guy's historically a great putter, it doesn't mean they're going to be a great putter this week, right? So it just really is hard to predict because putting is such a make or miss game. But what you can do yourself this week, and what I'm going to be targeting, is I'm going to be targeting very good approach players who are in good tee to green form, or good putters who are in good tee to green form, right? Because good putters are more likely to putt good again, right? It's like the scene from the movie Moneyball where, the scouts are talking and the guy's like, well, if he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good, right? Well, if you're a good putter, you're going to continue to putt good. And so that's going to be one thing I'm going to target this week. When you look at the winners, it's all guys who are either historically good approach players who putted well on the week, or historically good putters, or in the case of like a Sepp Straka or a JT Poston, both. So approach and putting is going to be very much the priority here this week. And like I said, if you liked the guy last week, you might want to like him again this week. The only exception is some of the bomb and gouge players like your Pot Geeters and your Minwoo Lees. Minwoo Lee's not in this field though, might not necessarily be your jam this week. So with all that being said, the key stats for TPC Deere Run, number one, first and foremost, is strokes gained on approach. Number two is good drive percentage. What good drive percentage measures is whether or not you hit the fairway or hit the green in regulation. So if you don't necessarily have a super high greens or driving accuracy rating, but you're able to keep the ball on the planet and recover and hit the green, you still get credit for a good drive. All proximities, and I'm going to change this, 100 to 150 is what we're going to be looking at. That's going to be like the big bucket here this week. And with this being an easy golf course, you're going to have to find a way to make birdies. So we're looking at putting, and we're looking at birdies or better percentage, or birdie or better gained. Just at the end of the day, you got to make birdies this week. So birdie or better has to be a stat that you're going to be looking at. Now, my comp courses, I've got three main ones. The first two are the courses we've seen in back-to-back weeks on the PGA Tour coming up, TPC River Highlands and Detroit Golf Club. I also think Pebble Beach is a really good comp. It's another course with very small greens where everybody plays to similar spots off the tee, and so you have to separate with approach and putting. And then for ancillary comps, these are courses that I don't think are the best comps, but I think you can look at a little bit. I've got TPC Scottsdale and Kapalua on here, because what you do end up with at Deere Run is you do end up with a lot of slopey lies. It's a very hilly golf course, a lot of elevation changes, a lot of undulation on the fairways. And so you're going to have to, be used to hitting with the ball above your feet, ball below your feet, or side hill lies, uphill, downhill lies, right? And TPC Scottsdale and Kapalua are two golf courses where that comes into play quite a bit. I also think that when you also look at, kind of positional approach and putting golf courses, TPC Summerlin, Sedgefield, and the Pete Dye Stadium course all apply as well. The only difference is that those courses have significantly different agronomy, but you see some kind of crossover success, crossover winners, right? Like at Sedgefield, JT Poston has won both of those events. The Pete Dye Stadium course, Sepp Straka has won both of those events. So you can just kind of look at stuff like that, right? Anyway, that's the key stats for this week. Now let's go ahead and dive down the rabbit hole and see how they play out. Golf that allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions in order to really isolate the micro skills that you're going to need to find specific golfers for specific weeks. It's been monumental for me this year in terms of finding guys at specific courses that I might not have found otherwise. So here's what we got for our custom model from the rabbit hole this week. I want to look at strokes gained off the tee last 36 rounds, because you can't be a poor driver. here, right? Like you can be an average driver, but you can't be a poor driver. So I do want to factor in strokes gained off the tee a little bit. Best in the field, Chris Gotterup, Michael Thorbjornsen, Aldrich Potgieter, Rico Hoey, and Kevin Yu. Then I wanted to look at that good drive percentage like we talked about. Best in the field, Hayden Buckley, Martin Laird, Rico Hoey, Emiliano Grillo, and Ricky Castillo. Distance from edge of fairway is another stat that is kind of like driving accuracy, except it measures how far you are from the fairway when you miss. So basically just, are you keeping the ball on the planet off the tee? Best in the field, Takumi Kanaya, Zach Blair, Paul Peterson, Lucas Glover, and Ben Coles. Next, I want to look at general strokes gained approach for the calendar year 2025. Best in the field, Emiliano Grillo, Henrik Norlander, Ben Griffin, Bud Cauley, Sammy Valimaki. Then I want to look at that key approach bucket of 100 to 150 yards. Best in the field, Tim Vieding, Lucas Glover, Matt Kuchar, Max McGreevy, Andrew Putnam, and Taylor Montgomery. Then I want to look at a strokes gained approach on two different types of golf courses. This is on golf courses that are short golf courses, because that tends to be the courses that you're going to see a lot of wedges in, right? Best in the field, Grayson Sigg, Joel Damon, David Lipsky, Jackson Suber, and Ben Griffin. And then strokes gained approach on easy green and regulation golf courses. So what this is measuring is, hey, when everybody's hitting the green, are you putting yourself in better spots than others? Best in the field, Lucas Glover, Henrik Norlander, Emiliano Grillo, Kurt Kitayama, and Jackson Suber. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained putting on pure bent grass, not bent POA, what we saw last week at the Rocket Mortgage, pure bent grass. Best in the field, Denny McCarthy, Pearson Cootie, Vincent Whaley, Jason Day, and Cameron Champ. And then I want to look at all putting under 15 feet. So the very short window, 3 to 5 feet, best in the field, Denny McCarthy, Cameron Champ, Seamus Power, Chesson Hadley, and Emiliano Grillo. 5 to 10 feet, we've got Sammy Valimaki, Taylor Montgomery, Vince Whaley, Nick Dunlap, and Cade Cummins. 10 to 15 feet, we've got Isaiah Salinda, Kevin Velo, Pearson Cootie, Jacob Bridgman, and Sam Ryder. And now we start to look at kind of the scoring stats, right? So birdie or better percentage on easier than average golf courses, best in the field, Nico Echeverria, Joe Highsmith, Luke Clanton, Jesper Svensson, and Jacob Bridgman. Strokes gained total on, let me see what this one was again. I got to remind myself. On easy green and regulation golf courses, which is kind of similar to that approach stat we just looked at. Best in the field, Ben Griffin, Kurt Kitayama, Luke Clanton, Davis Thompson, and Alex Smalley. Then I want to look at strokes gained total on easy golf courses. No, I'm sorry. I messed that up. Strokes gained total on bent grass parkland golf courses. So basically the same archetype that you see here, bent grass greens, tree line fairways, that type of course, right? Best in the field, Sung J M, Ben Griffin, Kurt Kitayama, Doug Gim, Vincent Whaley. And then I wanted to look at short courses. Best in the field are Bud Cauley, JT Poston, Luke Clanton, Jason Day, and Ben Griffin. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained total on all of my comp courses and my ancillary comp courses. Best in the field, Jason Day, Sung J M, JT Poston, Tom Kim, and Luke Clanton. And Davis Thompson also tied for 5th as well. Throw all that into a model, and what you end up with is my number one golfer. I was not surprised at all to see this, is Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin is the best golfer in this field. Ben Griffin is the Scotty Scheffler of this field, which feels weird saying, but when you look at the overall field strength, which is not very good, it's one of the worst of this calendar year, right up there with Mexico and the Cognizant Classic. In this field, Ben Griffin is the big dog. And when you take name out of it, if you were to look at his resume over this calendar year and how he's played and what he's done, you can make an argument that Ben Griffin's been the 3rd best player on the PGA Tour. Seriously. Xander hadn't won this year. Colin hadn't won this year. Ludwig won and hasn't done crap since. Ben Griffin is just routinely churning out top 10 finishes. It doesn't matter if it's a major, strong field, weak field, team event, whatever. Ben Griffin's been finishing near the top of the leaderboard. And when you look at his strokes gain profile, it's a whole lot of green. He's pretty much gaining strokes in every category, every event, which is not easy to do. And so as long as Ben Griffin continues to show us that he's kind of leveled up into being a good PGA Tour player, I'm going to continue playing him in DFS. And you look last year at the John Deere Classic, he finished T5 and he lost strokes off the tee. I remember watching that tournament because I actually hit an outright on Davis Thompson at this tournament last year, which was a great bounce back after not hitting Akshay the week before. But his driver let him down in the final round. Like there were multiple times where he was in the trees because he could not find the fairway. Well, since then, he's leveled up his driver play. He's leveled up his distance and just overall ability off the tee. And I think this is a great spot for Ben Griffin. I don't really like the betting odds for him, like as the favorite, but I think he is significantly the best player in the field by a wide margin. And I'm going to be playing him a lot in DFS. And I think that he's a great play this week. I think it's highly unlikely he finishes outside the top 20. And if you're looking to make some top 5, top 10, top 20 bets, I think he's a great bet for those type of placement bets. Second in my model, Luke Clanton. So we need to talk about the dichotomy of Luke Clanton versus Michael Thorbjornsen, right? So both of these two guys, not much unlike Colin and Victor coming in at the same time on the PGA Tour in 2019. We've got Luke Clanton and Michael Thorbjornsen coming in. And the pendulum kind of keeps swinging between the two and what their perception is, right? Now, what I will say about Thorbjornsen is when you look at the betting odds, somebody out there, and I think there's a lot of smart people out there actually really think Michael Thorbjornsen is going to win this event. His betting odds were significantly shorter than what I thought they were going to be, right? And his price in DFS was significantly more than I thought it was going to be. It is a lot more than Luke Clanton. It's $400 more on DraftKings than Luke Clanton. But I think this is more of a Luke Clanton course than a Michael Thorbjornsen course. Michael Thorbjornsen really mashes it off the tee, is really dependent on the driver for a good finish, whereas Luke Clanton can really spike with the putter. It's what he did last year en route to a T2 finish. Is consistently really good on approach. So the two categories that we're looking at are the two categories where Clanton has been better at. And oh, by the way, this year, he hasn't lost strokes on approach since the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So the strength of Luke Clanton's game is approach play and putting. The strength of Michael Thorbjornsen's game is driving and putting. So I think that this is a much better Luke Clanton course than it is a better Michael Thorbjornsen course. And so I really do like Luke Clanton here this week as well. Now, for whatever reason, the rabbit hole has not updated salaries yet. So Mark Hubbard is listed only here as 7,100, but Mark Hubbard showed up really well in my model. And one of my key contentions this week in DFS is like, go out and play your guys that you like at the top, because there's plenty of ways to backfill value. Like there's not much that separates Mark Hubbard at 7,700 versus some of the guys that are in the 8K range, right? So I really do like Mark Hubbard this week. He's at his best at short golf courses. We can see that in the results. He's at his best at Birdie Fest. We can see that in the results. And aside from the U.S. Open, he's been consistently playing well week in and week out on the PGA Tour. Not surprised to see him come out near the top of my model. Really do like him here this week. So Lucas Glover's coming in fourth in my model. So let's talk about Lucas Glover. Lucas Glover tends to play well at Lucas Glover courses, right? I'm talking about shorter golf courses where you can separate with your approach play. That tends to be his jam. He has a win at Sedgefield. He has a win at TPC Southwind. He has a win here. Lucas Glover continues to play really good first and second shot golf, and his putter continues to fail him. But the thing is with Lucas Glover is at Lucas Glover golf courses, which this is one, when he tends to gain with the putter, he has the upside to win. And he's gained with the putter here in 4 straight. So I think this is a pretty good spot for Lucas Glover as well. He definitely fits into one of the categories of guys that I'm going to be targeting here this week in DFS and betting. Andrew Putnam, number 5. So he kind of fits into like the Denny McCarthy mold of a guy who is really good on the greens, who is coming in good approach form. And, you know, his weakness, which is his driver, is going to kind of be mitigated here because he's just going to have to play to certain spots, right? Like he's not a good driver of the golf ball, but it's okay. That's not going to be like a key defining feature here. He's got back-to-back top 10s coming in. He's at his best at short golf courses. Andrew Putnam, solid choice this week as well. Victor Perez, number 6. I was kind of surprised to see him up this high, but then I kind of forgot about how good he'd been doing recently, right? Until his T51 at the Rocket Mortgage, he'd been really playing some good golf. 9th at the Canadian, 19th at the U.S. Open, gaining strokes in almost every category. The Rocket Mortgage, not exactly what I would consider a Victor Perez golf course. This is one. So I do think that this is a pretty good spot for him coming in at number 6. 7th and 8th in my model, Siwoo Kim and Keith Mitchell. probably passing on both of them. JT Poston, number 9. We're going to talk about him in a second. And then Eric Cole, number 10. Another reason why I think you can really play some different guys this week in DFS is because you have Eric Cole down here at 7,200 as a really good salary saving option. He's at his best at short golf courses. His weakness is his driver, and that is very much mitigated here this week. All right, so that does it for the rabbit hole. Let's take a look at the board and let's come up with a strategy for DFS betting in one and done. Before we do that, I forgot to mention, if you do want the top 10 to this model, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. What I do is I tinker with this model all week long, and then every Wednesday, I write a full write-up article with my core plays for DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as the top 10 from my model, as well as why they are my core plays and why they are my top 10 in my model. So if you want access to that, head on over to the Patreon. If you're looking to support the channel in any financial way, the Patreon is how you can do that also. If you want more from me, you can also follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks, and you can also join the Fantasy Corner Discord, which is a community of a bunch of really good and really smart people who play DFS for a lot of different sports. And if you're just looking for people to talk DFS with, it is very DFS oriented. I cannot recommend it enough. All right, so let's take a look at the full board now. So we already mentioned my affinity for Ben Griffin, right? In terms of the top of the board, Ben Griffin is going to be one of my highest exposure plays. Jason Day is coming in off the really good finish at the Travelers, and I'm going to be honest, I wish he hadn't, because now I think a lot of people are privy to Jason Day now that they've seen it, but he's playing some pretty good golf this year. It's gone under the radar because he hasn't popped for a win. He also hasn't really played a whole lot of Jabroni events, of which this is one, but the Jabroni events he's played well in. T3 at the American Express, T32 at Farmers, T27 at Houston, right? So he's pretty good in these weak field events so far this year. I think this is a really good spot for Jason Day. I don't think it's necessarily likely he wins, but I think you can get to him in DFS because you don't need him to win to pay off. The guy I'm probably going to be fading at the top is JT Poston. So when you think of JT Poston, this is like the perfect golf course for JT Poston, right? Approach and putting. But his approach form has been atrocious. Like to the point to where when he does gain with the putter, the only time that he's finished well, like this calendar year, has been at the PGA Championship and at the RBC Heritage, where he just went nuclear on the greens. And the PGA Championship, he was great with his irons. I just don't have any faith that he's going to be able to really flip the irons like that immediately and have the putter cooperate, of which it's been pretty hit or miss this year as well. So he's a guy that I'm probably going to be off of this week, not really looking to get into a whole lot. All right, so next up, we get to talk about the guy that I believe is going to win this golf tournament, and that is one Dennis McCarthy. At least I'm pretty sure his full name is Dennis. Denny McCarthy is probably, in my opinion, the best putter of the golf ball on the PGA Tour. Just consistently really good on the greens. And that skill set, like that specific skill, is exemplified at some golf courses more than other, right? And this is a course where the putter is amplified because of the fact that everybody is playing to similar spots off the tee and everybody is hitting the greens. Like regardless of how close they are to the pin, they're hitting the greens. And so if everybody is basically starting the tournament on the greens, why not take the guy who's just the best putter? And oh, by the way, you know, if I thought that this was a good course fit for him, the history bears that out in the last 3 appearances of this event, T6, T6, T7, and he really only went nuclear on the greens once. So that's really a good sign for Denny McCarthy. This is a guy who has not won before on the PGA Tour, but he's coming in with good approach form. We know he's the best putter on the planet, and this is a course where he is going to use that skill set. And also another thing, when it comes to McCarthy, he hasn't played like a poor field event since the Valero, which he was T18. Like he has played all the signature events and majors exclusively this year. So now that he's finally in a field where not only is he getting to use his best skill, but he's one of the best players in the field at a course he has good history at with good form. Denny McCarthy checking all the boxes. He's my official pick to win this week. All right, now after that, in the 9K range on DraftKings, and like I said, I think this is a week where go find your guys at the top, put them in your lineup, and find a way to make the rest of it work. Davis Thompson is the defending champ here. He is also going to be one of my guys this week. I think my 3 highest exposures at the top are going to be to Ben Griffin, Denny McCarthy, and Davis Thompson. So Davis Thompson, when he won here last year, right? Let's take a look at that. When he won here last year, gained strokes in every category, coming off of 2 straight starts where he gained strokes in every category, right? So he was in really good form coming in when he won. Well, his form coming in right now is really good tee to green. It's just the putter that's letting him down. But historically, he's not a bad putter, right? So he is in the kind of one of the categories for me right now where he's historically a good putter, but he's coming in with really good tee to green form, really poor putting form. And so I really think that this is a good spot for Davis Thompson, and I hope that he can find a little regression with the putter and will be able to use that here at this event. Out of the rest of the range, I really do think this is a good Jake Knapp course. So Jake Knapp is not like a one-dimensional bomber, even though he does hit the ball really far away. He has multiple different shots off the tee. He's been okay at club down courses off the tee. And he's just a guy that when he gets going, he gets going. And right now he's in a really good run, coming off of 2 top 30 finishes in his last 2 starts. I like Jake Knapp a lot this week. He's a guy that he fired a 61 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. We know he can go low. No, it was a 61 at the Honda Class, excuse me. So we know we can go low. We know we can go out there and make birdies like Jake Knapp a lot. I'm going to be avoiding Sung J M until further notice. His iron play used to be like the best component of his game, but it just hasn't been there in 2025. He's an easy fade for me this week, even though in DFS he is going to be super lowly owned. I'm just not seeing it with him right now. In the 8K range on DraftKings, we already mentioned my affinity for Luke Clanton. I do think Chris Kirk, what he did last week was like really impressive in terms of making that playoff, right? But I think that this is probably going to be a situation where he expended a lot of energy to make that playoff, was putting a lot of emotion, a lot of effort into it. And to come up short, I think it's probably a little bit of a disappointment for him. He's got back-to-back great starts, but I think that this is going to be kind of, I'll see you next time, partner. Not for me this week for Chris Kirk. I also really do like Bud Cauley. This is a guy who really shows up at easy golf courses, really shows up at short golf courses. He was playing really well early in the year when he was playing all of the full field, weaker field events. Since then, he's pretty much just been playing exclusively signature events and majors, and the results haven't been as good. But of course, they haven't been as good because the fields have been better. So I think this is a good get right spot for Bud Cauley. He's in good form in all 4 categories and strokes gained. Really do like Bud Cauley this week. Ryan Gerard is kind of in the same mold as Davis Thompson, to where historically he's not a bad putter when you look at the putting over the course of a large sample size, but he's lost strokes putting in now 6 straight starts. The rest of the tee to green play is pretty good. I mentioned last week I typically don't like him at Birdie Fest, and yeah, that's because of the fact that he's been really poor with the putter. But all he needs is just one start to flip the putter, and Ryan Gerard could absolutely find the winner's circle. Like, he's very much in like the Lucas Glover, Davis Thompson mold, right? After that, going down to the 7K range this week, I'm not going to be on Potgieter after his win. I'm not going to be on Keith Mitchell after that abomination that he had last week. 2 guys that I think there's a tremendous flop lag opportunity on, Alex Smalley and Steven Yeager. I thought they were great fits last week. They both missed the cut. In Smalley's case, he tends to play shorter golf courses much better, and this is one. And the off the tee play was still good at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He just never had a chance. Like he played himself out of it on Thursday. Steven Yeager, let's see if his numbers look any better. Not really. Lost with the putter, which is not something he does often. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I still think conventionally these are good course fits for those 2 guys, but the recent miscut does make them hard looks. So that's why I do think they're tremendous flop lag opportunities. We already mentioned my affinity for Hubbard and Putnam. I also really like Nico Echeverria. So Nico Echeverria's like fatal flaw is his around the green play. Well, guess what? You're not going to be missing many greens here, so you're not going to need to use that around the green play a whole lot. But this is a guy who is not a tremendous driver of the golf ball, but he's not bad at it. And he's a really good approach play, really good putter, can really spike in both those categories. I think this is a great spot for him to do that. Perfect course fit for Nico Echeverria, going to be on him at 7,800. Now, going down from there, Jacob Bridgman is another guy that can just absolutely spike with the putter. Kevin Roy is like very quietly playing some really good golf, coming in off of an 18th and an 8th place finish, where his approach play has been outstanding, gaining over a stroke per round on approach at both those tournaments. I think he is worth a look as well. And then I've been on my guy Ryo Hisatsune all season long, made the cut at the Rocket Mortgage. I made cut, but he continues to be solid in all 4 strokes gain categories. I'm going to continue to be on him. I have no problem doing that. And then 2 guys that I'm kind of on all the time. Lee Hodges and Tom Kim. Look, Tom Kim, this is a perfect golf course for him. I know he's playing poorly. I know he's been really bad, but he's one of the most talented players in the field. This is going to mitigate his weakness, which is driving distance. And if he can just have one tournament where he randomly gets hot with his approach player, with his putter, which we know he can do as well as anybody on the planet, then this could be a really good Tom Kim spot. Eric Cole, we've already mentioned my affinity for him. Let's talk about two more plays in this 7K range. First is Doug Gim. So Doug Gim is very much in the same category as Ryan Gerard, right? Where his tee to green game right now is outstanding. He's historically a really good ball striker, and that's been the case in 2025 when you look at all of his starts together. It's just been the putter that's been letting him down, but there was a little bit of encouraging signs there at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He gained 0.6 strokes per ounce, so about 2.4 strokes on the tournament on the greens. And Doug Gim, his tee to green game, especially his approach play, is so solid that if he is just neutral on the greens, he can give you a really good finish here. I really do like Doug Gim. I think he's a really solid like top 20 bet, because you're not even going to be reliant on the putter to do a whole lot at top 20 with how good his tee to green game has been playing. And then Matt McCarty, I think, is a really interesting look here. This is a guy who he fits in that first category where he's a really good putter, can really spike with the putter, and is coming in off of solid tee to green form at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Had a positive approach week, which he tends to string together. Not the best driver of the golf ball, but not the worst either. Think this is a solid spot for Matt McCarty. A few quick hits. If you're looking for a guy who can really putt it, Bo Hostler and Sam Ryder will be in that category. If you're looking for good ball strikers, Chan Kim, Austin Eckroat, Jackson Suber, I would put in that category. Now, the 6K range on DraftKings is quite weak this week because, let's be honest, the field is quite weak this week. But there's a few names I want to mention. Hayden Springer, I believe it was a 59 that he shot here in the first round last year, ended up as a T7, just continues to make cuts. So if you're looking to get that 6-6 lineup, which is going to be all important on Birdie Fest weeks, Hayden Springer is a guy that I think you could look to for that. I don't think he's going to be super highly owned. Another guy I think you could look at, Adam Schenk, solid course history, even though the course history isn't the end-all be-all here. Before last year, he had 3 straight top 6 finishes. And then there's a few young guys that are just like super talented, right? Jackson Coyvan is an amateur, almost made the cut. I believe he missed it on the number at the U.S. Open. No course history to speak of, but he's coming up from college. He's one of these young kids like Clanton and like Thor Bjornsson that I think is going to be really good. And this is a good spot to get on him in a very weak field where he might just end up being one of the most talented golfers in the field. Joel Damon is another one of those ball strikers that if he just is neutral with the putter, he could do something this week. I feel the same way about Adam Svensson. Both of their history here is pretty solid. Like, you just see a whole lot of made cuts for that, so I don't mind either of them. Another guys I will mention, I got to find him. Justin Lauer. So Justin Lauer's at 6,500. He, like Denny McCarthy, is one of the better putters of the golf ball on the PGA Tour. He's at his best at short golf courses. I actually hit an each-way bet on him at the American Express, where he just went nuclear on the greens. And if he does go nuclear on the greens, which he hasn't in a while, then he could be a guy that could end up doing something here at this tournament, because this is a course where he can accentuate his best skill, which is the putter. And I play him in Showdown DFS all the time because he has a chance to go low because of that putter. Zach Blair is also a guy at 6,400 that he's a short hitter. He's a pretty good putter of the golf ball. Don't mind looking at him at 6,400. I think that's a little bit of an underprice. And then John Pock is another one of these guys. We've mentioned him the last few weeks. And he's just really talented, and he's $6,400 in this field. I think that's worth a look. I think that's all that I want to mention here for the board. I think we talked about enough names, gave enough options for building out DFS lineups or putting together like top 20 bets or anything like that. All right, so let's talk about one and done to close this out. So my preliminary selection in one and done was Matt McCarty, which I think, not knowing what the field was going to look like, is not a bad selection. Like, he was coming off of that win in the fall. I think if you're chasing, like if you're way back in one and done, that's not a bad option, right? Because let's be honest, at this point in the season for one and done, you're only really going to move the needle with a win. Like 7th place money at this event isn't going to gain you a whole lot of ground on anybody. And the only way to gain ground on a lot of people is to find a winner and have it not be a popular winner, right? So this is a great week to, swing for the fences and play your position, right? So like in the one and done that I've been picking here on the show, I'm about in the middle of the field. And I really do need a win before the end of the season if I want to jump up into the money. So this is a good week as ever to find a win. Now, one thing I will say, one thing you should be checking this week is your league's availability for Ben Griffin. I was so strong against not playing Ben Griffin each of the last 2 weeks in one and done because of the fact that he was going to be at this event and he was going to be the favorite at this event, right? So now in the league I'm in, 47% of people have Ben Griffin available. If you're looking at a situation where like 30% or less have Ben Griffin, fire away with Ben Griffin because he's by far the best player in this event, by far the most likely to win this event. And if nobody has him left, then nobody can play him, right? But other than that, this is going to be a week where the top of the board is going to be very popular because all of these guys, aside from Ben Griffin, are probably very highly available, and they all are probably not guys that you're thinking about using down the road. Maybe you might want to use Poston or Siwoo at Wyndham. Maybe you want to use Sung Jae at the 3M or Davis Thompson somewhere down the line. I don't know, right? But you're looking at a lot of people in this regard that have not had a lot of usage and are not going to be needed down the road. So I think one of the most logical selections this week, hey, I said it, I think he's going to win. Denny McCarthy is going to be my pick for the one and done here on the show. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. We went a little over our 30-minute time limit, but that's okay. With it being kind of a weaker field and an event that kind of turns into a putting contest, I had a little bit of extra to talk about, but that's fine. Hopefully, we gave you guys all the information that you need to know in order to find some winners for the John Deere Classic, whether you're playing DFS, betting, or one and done. If you have not already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can help us hit our goal for 1,000 subscribers before the summer's over. And hit that like button if we helped you out at all. Likes on YouTube really do help out a ton. If you're listening on audio, you can rate and review. That helps me out so much, and I really do appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Next week, we're heading across the pond to talk about the Scottish Open, but we're also going to have some best ball content coming your way for both NFL and college football once Underdog drops those contests. So make sure you're subscribed so that we can be with us for all that and for the 2-week trek across the pond for the Scottish Open and the Open, 2 events that I love watching. But anyway, thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you guys with all your DFS lineups, one and done entries, and bets here this week at the John Deere Classic. Hopefully, we're here to help you guys out. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.